Hey there, Blue Mages Liam here, and welcome back to Blue Academy. Today I'm going to be talking through the clear videos for my statics O12S clear. We're talking about Phase 1 and Phase 2. As with the O4 and O8 videos, this is just a quick talk through of what our Week 1 strats were. Expect a more polished guide at a later time once these strats get a bit easier and more well polished themselves. But I'll talk through how we did it for Week 1. So we're going to start out with Omega M and F. There is very little that's actually different here from doing this with a normal party. So any of the mechanics that you've seen for O12 normally, they will apply here. We pretty much just we do our standard Moon Flute openers. In this case, we have one of our healer mimics also doing a Moon Flute opener, just for some extra damage. The damage checks are quite tight on both phases here, so we want to get out as much damage as we possibly can. Once our Moon Flute openers are done, we're going to spread out for our Beyond Defense, Pop Sprint, and we will all stack up except for the person who got charged. Also, I will pause here for a second because I will point out that before the Beyond Defense, we had no Gobskin. We also did not use any sort of damage downs on Omega M. And if you look at our health, that puts us very, very low. So, if you've played Blue Mage before, you know what that means. We just start blasting. We take advantage of Revenge Blast a bit in this first phase and a lot in the second phase. I don't think the second phase is actually doable without Revenge Blasting, but here it just gives us a little bit more freedom. It lets us skip the second limit break phase towards the end of the fight. Right here, M is changing into F, so now we'll heal up. We're going to refresh our dots a little bit early because we're going to put up Cold Fog here. Cold Fog is great for damage. We'll also Moon Flute and just run around and start hitting our Cold Fog White Death hits. Around the time that we will be going into waning is roughly when we will want to be thinking about going to our pre-assigned clock positions for optimized fire. Here you can see she's doing her superliminal motion, and we'll go to our clock spots. And once we come back in, again, this is a small Revenge Blast opportunity. We did not mitigate. There was a magic hammer, but it fell off right before the damage actually hit. No Gobskin, and we are good here. We did have one death, but it's not the end of the world. So here we have a few seconds to do our Revenge Blasts, and then F and M will split, and there will be two stack markers that go out. So here we do the standard positioning. If the eye is considered 12 o'clock, we'll put one party at 9 o'clock and one party at 6 o'clock. But our 6 o'clock party, we will actually rotate clockwise towards the other target. These stack markers are actually random. We do pre-assign groups of 4 and 4. If one of the parties has 2 players, someone just has to go to the other party. If you have Gobskin up, no one will die. So we just come in here, we quickly heal up, and we're all going to use Shorecast. Now the reason we do the positioning like this is once they go targetable, we're going to Moon Flute, and then we can hit both targets with Supernica, Night Bloom, and a couple of other AoEs like Glass Dance. And then you want to make sure that you are positioned such that you have 4 people close to F and 4 people close to M. Luckily, the firewall seems to respect proximity, so we're able to consistently get the targets that we want. I'll also note we didn't pre-assign groups based on M or F. It was strictly on position, so this could have been M and this could have been F. We would have had the same position. So now we'll look at their resonance. In this case, we want them to be together. If you look at this debuff, they are apart, so we want them to actually be together. And here we're waning. We're just kind of waiting. Fundamental synergy is your numbers cast. We do the sort of standard thing where we have the odds run across and we're doing box strat. For our case, we basically said whoever was on this 6 o'clock target is going to be south of the eye. Whoever's on this 9 o'clock target is going to be north, more towards the eye. After each charge, we just adjust our position. Nothing too unusual here. We'll go back to our targets. Just do some DPS. We'll do a laser shower here. We had our DPS bring Colonian Gate here. We actually used that later to survive, and you can use that on the laser shower to get a little bit of extra damage as well. Our tanks here will just diamond back the solar ray. Actually, one of our tanks is going to use Gate. One of our tanks diamondbacks. Right after, they will bring them to the center. For that solar ray, make sure that you are not near the tanks or you will die. In this case, they are doing synthetic blades first. This is our first of the sword and shield mechanics. This one's really, really easy. We're just going to stack behind F and M. We will step to the right. It's a good opportunity for cold fog. Everyone's going to take some damage here. You can start using your cold fogs. You go behind F, bait M. Everyone gets out to their clock spots, spread out the fires, and comes back in. We don't use this as a revenge blast opportunity because very, very shortly after there is the double laser shower, and we don't want to die. There will be firewall shortly, so we will refresh our dots on our current targets. That way we have dots rolling on both targets. And then this is a good opportunity for our moon flute. Our targets were together before. That means they will be apart now. So we just split our targets. And then we will be in waning again right as numbers is going out. So our odds will run across, evens will stay. And exact same thing as before. Afterwards, it is the same thing again. We'll have a laser shower followed by a solar ray. So here's our laser shower. And then there's a solar ray. Tanks mitigate, stay away from the tanks. We like to help by throwing an addle on the boss to mitigate even further, but if tanks are using their cooldowns, it's not even needed. So before we had sword, now we will see shields. For this, we pre-position to what we call Celestriad positions. This is how we handled our Celestriad in 08. So this is just quadrants based on your clock positions. Your cardinal, rotate clockwise, and that's your Celestriad position. Then there's Beyond Defense. Another good opportunity for Cold Fog. Whoever does not get charged will run to the center. We like to keep a healer in the center for AoE heals here. So you can see Athena here. She hit us with a snack and now is hitting us with some AoE heals. There's a lot of damage that goes out here, so we really want to make sure that we can get healed up during each of these mechanics. After the fire, or rather during the fire, M will jump to someone. We save our J kicks for this. Everyone's just going to jump in. And then everyone gets out for the blade work. Everyone except 2 people, apparently. Me being one of them, out too slow, and we died. Not the end of the world. Double laser shower again. Again, we're not revenge blasting here. So now what we do is, this is the sort of limit break phase. And this is really tricky because the targets are random. So anyone can get these. So what we ended up doing was keeping the targets in the center. And we basically said, if you get one of the limit breaks, so either the Sagittarius arrow or the Meteor, you will run to the right and swift cast Diamondback. Everyone else will run to the left. Initially, we did the sort of standard positioning of go to one side and then our targets will run across, or arrow will go just north of the boss, Meteor goes across, but it was really, really tight timing. So we found it was easier to just keep them in the center and everyone will go to the left except for the targets who go to the right. So here you can see this is a meteor, this is an arrow, so we will run to the right and everyone else will run to the left. I did not have my swift cast up, so I just die. This guy also died. Things get pretty messy here. Here's a Cosmo memory. This is massive damage and you can't easily mitigate this. So the way we did this was with Devour and Colonian Gate. Mighty Guard is sufficient here. You want to make sure you have a Gobskin up. It's just a ton of damage. Then there's laser shower, double AoE. And actually one of our tanks, our off tank here, died. So now we currently have one tank tanking both of them. Luckily Diamondback is overpowered, so he's able to take both of these melee LBs, these tank busters, and live. We are now in full-on panic mode because things fell apart pretty quickly. But it'll be a repeat of the mechanic again. So we orient towards the eye. And we're just about in sting range, so we actually should really have stung before getting to this point. But even if we kill them now, they're going to go through their whole mechanic before they actually do the phase transition. So we're going to try to do a loose spread to identify who is targeted. You can see there's a Sagittarius arrow on this person and a meteor on this person. They'll run to the right. And unfortunately for us, our meteor does not go far enough, which means it kills just about everyone. So we now have 3 people alive, but the targets are pretty much dead. As long as these people don't die to these last couple of mechanics, then we're fine. So this was actually one of our messiest M and F pulls, but it's the last one that I have before our actual clear. And I think it's worth showing because even if it's, you know, an absolute mess, you can still clear. So here you can see our tank had Diamondbacked both of those tank busters again. People are alive. That's all that matters. So now we're going to go into phase 2. Now, phase 2 is brutal. The DPS check on this is absolutely insane. We do a ton of revenge blasting here. And I'll explain how we get those windows, how we take advantage of that. So for this, we took 2 healers and 1 tank mimic, and we have 1 person, which is this guy, who will be sort of our off-tank utility DPS. So any off-tank mechanics, he'll be helping us do that. So we start out, just a standard Moonflute opener. The first mechanic that Omega does is the tank buster that goes on someone who is, it's this target analysis, it's one of the top 2 threat people. So our off-tank actually mixes in a frog legs into his opener so that he's on the second on threat. And you can see here, he actually gets targeted with the analysis. Actually, in this case, he doesn't. He had availed thinking that he was going to. Anytime that he got targeted, he would just avail our tank, and our tank would always Diamondback. Really cheesy way of dealing with it, but also really safe. If your tank gets targeted with it, they can just Diamondback and handle it themselves. Now, Patch is a really spicy mechanic. So the way this works is you have green tethers and blue tethers. Green tethers pop when they're close. They give a magic vuln. Blue tethers pop when they're far. They also give a magic vuln. If you pop 2 sets of tethers at once, you will definitely wipe, with the exception of if you're in Diamondback. So the way we handled this was we did an uptime strat. We wanted to get as much DPS on the boss as we possibly could. So we handled this pretty much the way that you would normally do that. I will include a toolbox in the video description so you can see how we actually did this. But the way we did this was to figure out who our tanks are going to be. So I ordered my party basically in the order in which I would tell people whether they're going to be north and south. So our tank has one of the green and red tethers, the Christmas tethers. So he is going to stay north and everyone else will go south. What happens then is one of our green tethers will pop immediately. So we just heal through that. Now going through my flowchart here of who's going north, we need a blue tether to break. So that is going to be me. I'm going to be the next person to move. So once this little AoE thing goes off and our magic vulns go away, I run through and I break my tether. Right after this, there is monitors. So the party will rotate away from the monitors and the 2 people who are north will go towards the monitors and Diamondback. Right after this breaks, or right after the monitors, we will break the last blue tether. So you can see this person will break their tether, and once the debuff goes away, we break the last tether by running into the tank here. Now we have Ion Efflux, and this is a very, very spicy raid wide, but it's also the key to our Revenge Blast windows. So for this, we did a Magic Hammer, an Addle, and a Bad Breath on every single Efflux with no Gobskin, and we get fully healed. So here you can see full heal with those 3 things. I actually ended up getting healed right at the end of that, but pretty much everyone else ends up in Revenge Blast range. Now this is a very short Revenge Blast window because Hello World is next. So we're going to have our tank quickly white wind us, and we're going to spread out to clock positions around the boss. It doesn't matter as much for Hello World 1, but for Hello World 2 it will be important. So Hello World, everyone was really nervous about this mechanic. It turns out it's actually pretty easy on Blue Mage. I'll include a toolbox in the description with our Hello World 1 strat, but it's pretty much what you would expect from a normal Hello World strat, except for we have these shared sentence people. The short one will go to our 1 marker, which is over here. The long one will go to our 2 marker, which is over here, and they'll cast Diamondback. With Diamondback, they don't need anyone to stack with them. So our first defamation goes to the far south. Our 3 blue DNA people will catch that defamation and then spread out to A, B, and C. Our 2 no debuff people will then catch this second defamation. Then everyone will be up here at D, the safe spot. And then critical error goes out, which will apply defamation to the shared sentence people, who will then take theirs to their respective spots. And we just had 2 goes to B, 1 goes to A. Easy to pre-plan it. It is also important to note that there is a lot of raid damage going out here. It is not easy for healers to get everyone. Healers, have a finite range. So for this, we brought White Winds, and while you were we said while doing your own defamations, you have to put up Mighty Guard and you will White Wind yourself. Here we have another Ion Efflux, so you can see we have Hammer, Addle, and Bad Breath. We quickly heal up with no Gobskins, and then everyone is in Revenge Blast range. Now this is a very long Revenge Blast window. We actually naturally regen out of this, but it's during a very easy mechanic. So here is Archive Peripheral. This is a sort of follow the leader type mechanic. You just call where the safe spot is, which is going to be between a red and a blue. And if you don't see it, you have to sort of figure out what it would be based on that. Like if you see just a blue and a red, it'll be just exactly opposite. If you see 3 blues, then that means it would be 3 reds that you're not actually seeing. It's kind of tough to explain this concisely, but if someone in your group knows how to do it, basically just follow them. So we go to the side, and we just continue Revenge Blast. Now he will do another target analysis here. So our off tank gets targeted here. Our off tank avails our tank, who is Diamondbacking. And there we go. We'll follow this up with his sort of front, back, or side lasers. This time it's side, so we'll go to the sides. We heal our off tank because there will be monitors. So there's the monitors. Our tank and our off tank will just get in position and Diamondback. And at this point, we are out of Revenge Blast range, so we are pretty much just going to heal up. After this will be our Index and Archive Peripheral. For this, we just go to the center. We start out in our clock spots, and this is where, if you get a tether, you're going to run it straight across. Now, this is another Revenge Blast window. We are not going to use Gobskin, and we are not going to mitigate this damage at all. No Bad Breath, no Addle, no Magic Hammer. You can see the damage will hit us, and again, we are in Revenge Blast. So, we just start blasting. There's another Tank Buster here. Our off tank was just in time getting his diamond back. So he lives. Everyone else just keeps blasting here. And this one's really nice because there's no movement for a very long time. We're able to just stand here and pump Revenge Blast. We will regen out of it, as with before. And then we want to heal up because we have our second patch. So I've seen a strat where you can Diamondback patch and you pop 2 tethers immediately. I'll link to that video so you can see how to do that. I'm not really a fan of that. Like I said, the DPS is very, very tight here. And if you Diamondback all the patches, you're looking at like 30 to 40 seconds of just straight up downtime. However, it will be easier to execute probably, but learning the timing is pretty tough. The group that I saw doing it was literally counting auto attacks to figure out when they would Diamondback. If that works for you, then go ahead and do that. I'm not going to explain that here, but I will link to a video that does show that. So here you can see we get to our clock positions, debuffs go out, and we want a Christmas tether north. So going just top to bottom with me basically being, pretend I'm in the 3rd slot. We'll have this person go to the north, everyone else is south. Our first Christmas tether breaks. Next will be our tank is going to break. We have to rotate to the sides here to avoid the beam. So our tank is going to go north. And we always rotate back. We like to keep it front and back so that, rather than sometimes running through, sometimes staying, we found it more consistent to just always plan on rotating. So here we rotate back. There's monitors. Our tanks get in position to soak those. And it's actually fine if the tanks are on top of each other here. Diamondback is so strong that they're going to live. And here, again, we're just going to have one of our last blue tether is going to break. So this person will break tether. And once the debuff is done, then I will break the tether. And again, here's an ion efflux. We do Addle, Magic Hammer, Bad Breath, full heal, no Gobskin. And we start blasting. This is a shorter Revenge Blast window, again, because of Archive All. We just like to milk all the damage that we can. So Archive All, we're going to get behind, and we're going to go away from the rotation. So for this, we're going to be back and to his left. So we're going to be on this side. We're going to go as far against the wall as we possibly can, because that jump really hurts. If you're even like up here, you'll probably die. So we blow up this arm. And for this, we had pre-assigned fan positions out from where the arm is. We bait these ground AoEs. We move out. They pop. Anyone that doesn't have one of these puddles should go back to the center. These puddles should be trying to spread out here. And then after that, they pop. Everyone comes back in to avoid the other arms exploding. So I help out with White Wind a little bit there because it's just a ton of damage. I recommend doing that too if you are not really moving a whole lot. For example, if you're one of the people who comes back in. Then we just got our lasers again. We didn't have to move that time. If we had to move, we would have just rotated. Not a big deal. Now after this is Hello World 2. This one is spicy. This is the same as Hello World 1, except we have the rot mechanic and the towers. I will include a toolbox for this as well. We found a very consistent way of handling this, which just entails having our rot first step into the center to avoid passing it too early. Rot will then move to 3. Our first defamation is south as before with the 3 blue DNAs. We take our first defamation person and they will grab the rot. This rot person will grab defamation on the east side here, and then they'll pop it on the east side. Once this short sentence goes off, our no debuff person will go join the short sentence. So here I have the rot. After our second defamation, the 3 people here, the 2 shared sentence and the no debuff, will grab rot from me. They will grab their towers. We just have 2 will grab this tower, and then B. 1 will grab this tower, and then A. No debuff grabs center, and then C. And I come to 1 to avoid killing people with rot. Now, she unfortunately dies to the critical error, which is what hands out the debuffs, the final defamations, but it's not a big deal. We haven't had many deaths. This might actually be our only death on this pull so far, and that's pretty good. People will pop their towers, pop their defamations, and then we have Hello World 2 resolved. Here's Ion Efflux again. Hammer, Addle, Bad Breath. We fully heal up. No Gobskin. And then we start using Revenge Blast. Now, we pretty much, if you take 3 out of 4 of your mitigation techniques, you'll get in Revenge Blast range. So you could drop Magic Hammer and add Gobskin, for example. But we found that this combination was getting us the absolute lowest health so that we had the most time for Revenge Blasting. So here we've got Archive Peripheral again. I actually run to the complete wrong side. So this is a follow the leader where the leader is completely wrong, but this is such a slow mechanic that we have plenty of time to go and resolve it. We actually heal out of Revenge Blast range early by accident, so here we cut that a little bit short. Tank gets the Tank Buster, they run through in Diamondback, same deal as before. We have Diffuse Wave Cannon, so we'll just rotate. And then we rotate back. And then we've got our monitors. Now, our off tank is actually low on mana, so he asked me to grab this. So I just run to the monitor, cast Diamondback, and we're good. Even without Mighty Guard or anything, Diamondback lets me live. After this, we've got Index and Archive again. So same as before, we go to our clock spots. We found that this helped us with getting the tethers more consistent. Again, you just drag it straight across. No mitigations and no Gobskins. Puts us right in Revenge Blast range. So now we can do that. Tank Buster follows shortly after. Just stay away from the tank and we're fine. This is, again, a pretty short Revenge Blast window. This will be... Actually, I misspoke. This one is quite a long Revenge Blast window. I'm confusing it with a later one. But we do have another patch coming up. So for this, we will heal up. And we handle this the same way as before. Debuffs go out. I can see our tank is north. Our off tank will be the one breaking first. So everyone is south except for our tank. First one breaks. We do not have to rotate here. Then our off tank will break. He runs through. Then we rotate away from the monitors. Our tank and off tank will diamond back the monitors. You can see, again, they are literally stacked. Our off tank does not even have Mighty Guard, and he's actually fine. After the monitors, I will break my tether. And after the debuff, our final Christmas tether will break. Ion Efflux, Addle, Conk, and Bad Breath. No Gobskin. And we start Revenge Blasting. Now this is the short Revenge Blast window, because we have Archive All coming up, which is our last real mechanic, and it's the same as the one we saw before. So we are going to position behind and to the right this time. We run right against the wall, as far to the wall as we can get, because that jump hurts. We fan out to our positions, non-puddles come back in, and then everyone comes back in. At this point, we are freaking out because we know that we are going to clear. So everyone's just kind of spaghettiing and forgetting that we still have to handle this little laser thing. But we're at 5% here, and he will start casting Final Program Omega, which begins the Enrage sequence entirely. We'll go center, we'll cast Program Omega, and then start casting a ton of raid-wide damage. Now, if you start seeing the Enrage here, it's a ton of Ion Effluxes, a ton of just raid-wides while there's these really cool explosions going off. This is honestly one of the coolest Enrage sequences in the game, in my opinion. You want to mitigate this as much as you can. We are not going for Revenge Blast here. That would be absolutely silly. So we're going to keep a Bad Breath up. We had an add-on Conk rotation in mind, but ultimately, it doesn't actually matter. We end up killing him right at the first Ion Efflux. Now, I said the DPS check was really tight. We were about 35 to 37 seconds off from the hard Enrage there. So if you count the 3 patches, if we diamond back all of those, that's 30 seconds of downtime. And we executed this pretty well. I think we only had 1 death, and we did mess up one of our Revenge Blast windows slightly. But this was a pretty well executed fight, and we were still really close to the Enrage. So just keep that in mind. This fight is an absolute blast, though, but it will take some time, especially just getting used to the movement on Hello World 2 for some people. But with that, keep an eye out for the more polished guide at a later date. Once, I figure out the exact timing for the Diamondback patch, I'll include that as an option here. But if you want to see the actual strats that we use for our week 1 clear, then you can see the toolbox links in the video description below. As always, thank you for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe. Come join us on Discord, and keep having fun with Blue Mage.